Okay. Yeah. Sorry about the minor delay there, everybody. So again, my name is Mike Shaw, and I am fundamentally a sculptor. And so this is the piece I have in the exhibition downstairs, and I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to show here at CICA. So it's a big thank you to all the staff and the curators. So I'm not actually going to talk about this until the end. My talk is relatively brief. It's just to give an overview. So particularly this aspect of my practice centers on site-specific relationships. So I'm interested in how one can build a relationship with architectural space, and that invariably means me responding somehow to different architectural buildings. This particular piece here was a few years back where I was in a kind of deconsecrated church. So that was a church that's no longer a church and has become an arts venue. So the idea around some of these works is that you cannot see them from one viewpoint, that you have to move around the space, and it's about your experience in the space with the work itself. So you accumulate a series of different vistas and viewpoints, and that's what defines what the work is. And as you can see, the sort of top left image, the guy, that sort of gives you an indication of the scale. So the part at the end, the sort of bulbous end, was about 8 meters in diameter. So the midpoint is about 4 meters. So that's kind of towering over your head and projecting over you. As you can also sort of intuit from the images that you can walk into these spaces that are not obvious. So at times you're walking under the sculpture, and other times you're sort of hiding around columns to try and find where the sculpture goes. So I've made a series of pieces like this. Strangely enough, this was yet another deconsecrated church. That period was the church period, and again, you can sort of see I'm quite interested in using these really dynamic, bold, fluorescent colors and bringing them into different environments. So there's the work becomes site-specific in lots of different ways, that it's interacting with the columns, it's moving around the building, but it's also projecting its color and its hue onto the building itself. You also take the air from the building and put that to make the sculpture. So I like all these relationships. What you can't see from these still images is that the sculpture itself often breathes, so it's connected to a fan, and this fan cycles between on and off, so the sculpture very gently moves up and down as though it's kind of pulsing or breathing. So there's a connection, hopefully, to our lungs. This piece of you was from 2020, which just kind of strangely happened during the pandemic, and it was kind of in a window where we weren't in lockdown in England. And this was in a triangular building, so it was about 80 meters long, so you couldn't see one end from the other. But at night we lit it with UV lighting, so it had a very different feel during daytime and nighttime. What's quite interesting about the building was that from 2 sides of the triangle, you could actually see different parts of the sculpture. So the sculpture kind of shifted from predominantly pink to predominantly yellow through its length. Yeah, I mean, the stripes, I don't know why I'm using stripes. I guess because I just like stripes. Semi-unintellectual reasoning, but that's about it really, in a sense. It was quite fortuitous in a way that the building was in a state of renovation, and the commissioners, they wanted something in there to try and attract people to see the space. And it had these metal floor tiles, so you've got this fantastic reflection off the floor again. So it's again kind of these unexpected things that sometimes happen as artists that allow you to connect with people or place. So this is kind of the U2 was the predecessor to the work that I have at CICA, and it's the first time I'd use this metallic fabric. So the fabric is parachute material. This particular fabric has a very, as you can see, a really reflective coating on it. And the idea was that, you as the viewer also become part of the sculpture. So you don't get a perfect reflection, but when anybody walks by it, part of their reflection, the color of their clothes would be drawn onto the surface. And again, in this work, you can see I'm interested in making people move around the space in different ways. And again, you can't see the whole sculpture from any single position, so you kind of accrue this experience that changes over time. And so that was as I say, that was the first time that I used this fabric, and what I felt is it had quite an interesting relationship with the industrial space. I think if I'd have put the fluorescent material in here, it probably wouldn't have worked, because this building had been renovated and it had a lot of industrial ducting, so somehow the silver connected quite well. And so that's kind of really what made me use the same material again here, because for anybody who's visited, you know, a lot of the structure of the building is still exposed. The steel beams, it's kind of got quite a muted semi-industrial feeling. So in the work Quicksilver here at CICA, I'm kind of interested in this idea of pressure and compression, so that you, depending on where the sculpture is, you kind of have to almost push past it to get into the main space. So it's a more restrictive piece of work, in the sense that the pathways are not particularly generous, so I'm actually almost physically pushing you up against the walls. And as you can kind of see here, as you come up the staircase, you just see it giving you a hint of what's to come. And then you come around the corner and there you have it. There you have it. So that's a very brief overview of the kind of work that's led up to the piece at CICA. I don't know if anybody's got questions, or we're just going to move on and completely easy.
Any questions?
So if anybody's got any questions, then I'm happy to answer.
Is it plastic or fabric? What's the material?
It's fabric, so it's all made from a kind of parachute material. It's very lightweight. Strangely enough, I brought the sculpture in a suitcase that went on the airplane that I guarded very jealously. So it compacts down very small. So some of the very big works I can fit in my car.
Is there any specific rules or reasons when you pick the space for this conference?
That's usually what gets offered. So it's quite often venues are contacting me, so the space is predetermined. So I'm working with the space. But if the space is really neutral, it's more challenging. If it has columns, sometimes I've made pieces that move from room to room, then there's kind of something to work with. We were talking earlier, this is a bit more like a sculpture that you could take to another place and it would still be okay. It would have resonances. Some of the other ones, because of the physical nature of the building, they kind of need support, so they're resting on something or they're going over something. So although I still keep them, I don't know whether I would ever show them again.
And also the change in color, initially it's so colorful.
Yeah.
Now become more silver. You know why there is an issue?
Well, I think the reason was really because that the first time I used it, it was dual. It was this idea of incorporating reflection onto them, but also because that building itself was so industrial that it was lucky. I was lucky, right? As artists, we sometimes get lucky, and it kind of worked out. When you saw the silver in that industrial building, it made sense. And it would have been a different thing, but that was kind of the prompt, really. So I think it's being sensible.